Hey guys, welcome back to video 2. In this video, we're going to be going over how to properly track your macros. I want to make sure that you guys are putting these things in there into your app or on paper, however you're going to do it. I want to make sure that it's done right the first time because you can have the perfect macros, you can eat all the right things, but if you're not tracking it properly, you're not going to end up eating what you want to eat, and so you may not see the progress that you want to see. So we're going to go over this before we get into the next video, and the next video is going to be how to fine-tune your macros so that you can change them and adjust them and make them fit you and what you're noticing in your progress, and we'll go into that in the next video, so you'll see a lot more about what we're going to do. So today we're looking at how to properly track your macros. Even if you feel you know how to track macros properly, I would pay attention anyway. The error isn't always what you're doing. Sometimes it's something simple like a serving size. Maybe it's something else in the app itself. Sometimes these things just slip past you and you didn't even realize you're doing it wrong for a long period of time. So you could have the best intentions, perfect macros, and monk-like discipline, but without an accurate account for what you're eating, you'll not get where you would like to be. And that's me eating some donuts. You could fit those in your macros, by the way, if you wanted to, but why would you? So if you've never tracked your food before, you'll definitely see something that you're not used to because the macros add up quickly in some foods. In some other foods, you get to eat a whole lot of stuff that you didn't realize before. So the general overview of how macro tracking works. So we want to start with our daily totals. So like we had Karen before, who was Karen? Nancy. We had Nancy before, my bad. 150 grams of protein, 150 grams of carbs, and 50 grams of fat. You remember that? Those are our daily totals, and you can think of it like a bank account that's replenished every day. Every day, Nancy gets 150 grams of protein, 150 grams of carbs, and 50 grams of fat put back into her macro bank account, and she gets to take from that and use all of it, but she can't go over those. And really, she can't go under because those things don't save. So you have one day to spend everything in your bank account before the money disappears and resets the next day with the same amount. So that's the way you can look at it, is this thing is a recurring total that restarts every day. There's no reason to save up because you want to make sure that you're hitting the exact number every day and using all your macros as best as you can without having extra macros in there or going under. So you spend it or you lose it. There is no saving up after the day ends. So that's what we're going to do with our macros, so that we have a daily total that we're pulling from, and from that daily total we will subtract the macros of the foods that you're eating from the total. So your goal is to get as close to zero as on every macro, protein, carbs, and fats, as possible without going over. If you go over a very small amount, a few grams, things like that, it's not a big deal, but the goal is to get as close to zero without going over. So if you go over, you lose, which is true, especially on strict diets. Going over, you lose. You want to go under on those kind of diets, but for most people, as long as you're close is really the big part. So your goal is to get as close as possible, and there are a lot of different methods of tracking. I'm going to show you some of those today, but macro tracking may seem like something new. It's been around for a long time. People have been doing macro tracking well before smartphones were out, well before all these cool apps were out, and really it just doesn't really matter how you're going to track them as long as you do track them. A lot of people eat the same thing every day out of choice, out of convenience, that kind of thing. Those people don't need to track something every single day as long as they know what they're having. If they have the same thing Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays, and Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturdays, they have a variation of the same thing. They already know their macros. They don't need to keep tracking that and going neurotic about it unless they want something else different. So your different methods of tracking. One would be a low-tech option. That's your paper and pencil, or a sweet Nutrithority notebook, which you can buy on our website, by the way. And both options give you a hands-on approach to understanding your macros. You really don't need to use an app. If you're a pen and paper kind of person, if you like to see things visually, if you like to go in and do your own calculations, and that's the kind of person that you are, and you keep better track of having it there rather than on your phone or something like that, that's perfectly fine. I mean, there's a lot of apps that I don't use. I keep a physical notebook for all of my notes and all my tasks and all my projects that I'm organizing and things like that, rather than on my phone. My phone's way more convenient, but I overlook that stuff. And so a notebook can help you organize much better, and it can organize itself into a nutritional journal that you can look back on. And so I have workout, logs that I've looked back on from whenever I first started working out all the way through, up until I probably stopped tracking them about 5 years when I stopped getting less serious about it. But I have notebooks full of workouts, and so I can go back through when I was 18 years old, and I can see the kind of workouts that I did, and I could really, if I wanted to, I could look through and see, and that's where I made my best progress. This is exactly what I was doing. This is, how it works. This is kind of, what I was eating, what I was doing in the gym, that kind of thing. And that's really the method that's most beneficial if you're looking at this for, posterity, for, your records and looking back through things over time. So, plenty of people do the same thing. And there's, Tim Ferriss was talking about how he keeps all of his journals for his food journal and his workout journals. And he did the same thing. You go back through this kind of stuff and you look at it and see where you've been making progress and when you haven't been making progress. And you can really figure out what you did right and what you did wrong. And that would be the benefit of a notebook to me. For that reason, it's a little bit more work, but it's also beneficial because these apps, MyFitnessPal is just purchased by Under Armour, so it's huge right now, and it's by far the biggest app. But apps go away, phones change, export options are not always there, so if you really want a good historical point on it, I would go for a notebook. So otherwise, the high-tech options are, you could use a note in your phone, same kind of thing. That would be, something that if you wanted to use your phone, but you wanted the possible records for posterity and keeping that in a journal format or something like that, you could do notes on the iPhone or some sort of note app on your Android. I got away from Androids a while ago, so don't worry about that. But if you like to do that, you can use a notebook on your phone and still get the same thing for posterity, for tracking, for all those kind of different things. And you can organize them into little notebooks and things like that as well without having to really, write it out yourself. But that's a great option if you want to do something like that and you don't want to mess with an app. Otherwise, MyFitnessPal is the most popular out of all of them. And it is the most complete food database that they have. It does allow you to scan barcodes, search for individual food sources, and it will calculate everything and do the math for you. I am not personally a big fan of MyFitnessPal, even though I will confess I have not used it in a few years, so it may have gotten a lot better. But I'm going to go through my phone. I'm going to show you a little bit of my screen on my phone as well, so you can see why and why not. I'm not a big fan. Either way, not a huge deal. Some of the customizations that I prefer for my own macros are not in there. The way that it shows you things is not my preference, but ultimately it tracks your macros, does the calculations for you, and makes your life easier. It's worth using, and that's the way that I would look at it. So if you do want to customize it and see, set specific macro goals, you're gonna have to pay for it, and I believe it's a monthly fee rather than a one-time option, and maybe something like $10 a month or something, which may not be a big deal to you, but just keep that in mind. The My Macros Plus is my personal favorite app. I've used this one most of the time whenever I've tracked macros myself, rather than tracking them, rather than tracking them in a notebook, because I'll keep a notebook with my daily macro totals, that kind of thing, rather than the actual foods that I eat. I keep the foods that I eat in the app. I keep the macro totals and how my diet's going in either a journal format, or I do it in, an online, Word document or Google Doc or something like that. The My Macros Plus app still has the food database, and it's very good. It does scan barcodes. It does let you search for food sources. It doesn't have as big of a database as MyFitnessPal. And if you're only wanting to scan foods, prepackaged foods, go off of what they have, it's not going to have as much of that stuff for you. But if you're going to do it the way that I'm going to show you, I think the My Macros Plus may actually work a little bit better for you. It is a one-time fee of $2.99 at the current moment. We're in, is this May? We just got May of 2019. So whenever you watch this, it may have changed. Hopefully My Macros Plus keeps growing. I think the guy that develops it has a great insight into nutrition. He sees things the same way that I see them. And so the layout of this program is exactly how I see macros if I were to write them out myself or anything like that. So I do think it's a great app. They do offer some subscription-based services, Macro Coach or something like that currently, and that helps you select your own macros and change them and things like that. But since you have this program for free, it should really allow you to do that stuff yourself without paying for it. So if you go through this and you learn this kind of stuff, you're going to be doing this without the help of anybody else. And I will put it out there. If you need some help, you have some questions, you want me to really refine some of this stuff, shoot me a message, email me, get on our website, get on our Facebook page, shoot me an Instagram message on my personal Instagram, on the Nutrithority Instagram. It doesn't really matter. Just shoot that stuff over to me. I am happy to help out and help explain this stuff better. All it does for me is help me get better for other people, and I would like to share some of that stuff. I've written a lot of blog posts lately trying to answer questions for people and really put that out there for everyone to learn from and everyone to gain better experience from. And that's my ultimate goal with everything that I'm doing here, is how can I provide more information to help you get closer to your goals? Because that's what helps you. My supplements can help you drastically, But you need that foundation, you need the workouts, you need the diets, you need to understand how that stuff works, you need to understand how my supplements fit into that. And the supplements are always supplemental to your diet and your workouts. And so they should never be relied on. They should be something that gives you that extra edge, that extra boost, increases your performance, that kind of thing. And so that's where we're going from here. So number one, my biggest tip would be to plan your day before it starts. So you'll see amateurs, when they're tracking macros, they will choose what to eat as the day goes on. They will piece their macros together based on what's left over for the day. So they'll use up a lot of their macros eating something they want to eat, and then at the end of the day, all of a sudden they have something left over, and they still have 30 grams of fat and they're out of carbs and protein. And it's like, what kind of food are you going to eat to get 30 grams of fat without any carbs or protein? Like, if there's protein, you can do it. If there's carbs, it's a little harder for that, but you can do it. When it's 30 grams of fat or 20 grams of fat, you could take a spoonful of coconut oil, and it's like 14 if you get a tablespoon. That's two tablespoons would be pretty gross. I've done it. I've been an amateur plenty of times. That's why I'm speaking from experience here on how not to do it, because eventually I stopped putting up with my own crap, and I started planning everything that I was eating well before, whenever I was taking it serious for diets. Most of the time, whenever I'm acting like the amateurs, I am not serious about my progress. I'm just wanting to keep a good eye on my macros and things like that, just to make sure I'm not getting too fat. So at the end of the night, they, hope they can find something that fits in their macros and ends up with something like too much fat. I wrote these guys, so, I know what's coming. So it makes it hard to make a balanced meal. The professional, on the other hand, plans their meals before the day starts. They spread their macronutrients evenly across the meals with a purpose, and they end the night with a win, no macros left over or in the negative. And so the difference here is that, the night before could be all that you need to plan your day, and you know what you're going to eat because most likely you've eaten it before. So the spreading macros out evenly is more about your protein and things like that. You can push carbs, pre-workout, post-workout. You can keep them around your workouts. That's different topic stuff that we'll probably go into in future videos whenever I create more of this stuff, as long as you guys will take these videos and spread them to everyone that's interested in this stuff. Then I'll make more videos. But spreading them evenly across would be the easiest for most people, is just to split it up and do that. You can put more carbs in one meal and more fats in another meal if you want to. Protein's the one that I feel is the most essential to splitting up, because of the way that protein's digested and processed. And even though there's a lot of new research coming out saying that you can eat more protein in one sitting and things like that, I still believe it's the easiest to spread your protein out, and I also believe it's the easiest to spread the other macronutrients out, especially if you are not 100% sure with what you're doing. So ultimately, you need to make sure that you're acting like a professional and not an amateur with your macros, and that's how you will be more, successful in this entire journey. Is just to, it's the five P's, right? Proper planning prevents piss poor performance. 6 P's. Sorry, guys. So verify all nutrition labels. Food databases are not always correct. I've learned that myself with other people that I've helped and seen their macro profiles. So it's not their job to make sure that's right. That's your job to make sure that if you're eating a food and you scan the barcode, those things match up. And that's ultimately what you have to watch out for. One way that this gets changed a lot is that barcodes stay the same from product to product. And so if you have a yogurt that's, Chobani vanilla bean coffee blended yogurt, whatever it is, and they keep the same barcode on that same product, but they may have changed the macros around. So there may be, more carbs and sugar because they wanted to make it taste better. They pulled the protein down, something like that. It's the same barcode. The barcode information may be old. I've encountered this a lot of times myself whenever I've scanned something and it doesn't match up and I have to go in there and manually enter it instead. And so that's what you need to keep an eye on. You need to make sure that these nutrition labels are correct overall. So personally, I prefer entering items in grams for easy measuring accuracy, and I'm going to show you how to do that. And it's a lot of work up front. I'm going to put that out there. It's a lot of work up front when you're putting in all the foods that you eat consistently in as grams, if they're not already in your app, in a gram total, like a 1 gram total. So you can, really the idea is that, you can put, whatever food you want to eat, almonds on a scale, and you can fill that up with whatever the amount of grams. If you want 30 grams of almonds, you can put that in there and then go to your app and say, I'm eating 30 grams of almonds. And then it may be a weird fat number like, 15.4 grams of almonds and, 10.3 grams of carbohydrates and things like that. Just pulled these out of my head, by the way. It's not accurate. So that's why I like grams. It allows me to really precisely focus what I'm trying to eat and how much. And so I'm going to teach you how to do it quickly. It is very convenient once you've already put them in there. It makes it incredibly easy, especially to squeeze out every last macro for your day whenever you are tracking like a professional by doing this beforehand. It also works perfectly for people that don't want to use prepackaged sizes. A lot of time you're going to look at a food label and it's going to say, serving size half a cup. And you're like, man, I have no idea what half a cup equals in ounces or grams. Like, those two measurements are not the same. It will tell you a gram measurement over on the top corner. Let me go back. So up here, you're going to see 0.25 cups right here. Well, there's a gram measurement right there. That's what you need to know. Okay, let's move back through this. Come on. There we go. So this also works perfectly in that situation that I just explained already. So let's move on. Here is how you would set this up. So you're going to add a new food item to your database or your notebook, for a reference. You're going to enter the unit of measure as 1 gram. And if you look at your nutrition facts and pay close attention to the serving size, it should give you a gram measurement. So remember the phrase per gram, which would be, per 1 gram, means that we divide by the gram measurement of the serving. So simply put, we'll take the protein macros on the label and divide them by the serving size to get our protein amount per gram. So then you'll want to test that out. So you'll take your serving size and multiply it by the per gram protein amount. And I'll show you this because I know this is just like a teacher talking at the front of the room telling you stuff, and it's terrible. So you'll see it equals the same as what the nutrition fact claims. So if you do the same thing for carbohydrates, you divide the total amount of carbs in your serving by the serving size. You do this for fats. You do the same thing. Now you have the 1 gram measurement for every food that you use. And so I always use grams to factor my own macros. I'm going to go back here to this. Oh, yep. It likes to do this to me, doesn't it, guys? So I'm going back to this nutrition label because on this nutrition label, I want to go ahead and do this on my phone for you guys so you can see what I'm going to do. So you're going to see the serving size here. So, and this is the protein here. So let me pull my phone up here real quick. And so we're going to do my macros plus. I'm going to enter a new food source, add custom food down here. This is going to be for the course food. Yeah, you like that autocorrect. So you'll see the serving size here is 1 gram. The serving name, I'm going to put gram. Calories on this app are optional, meaning that it'll calculate them for you. So really you need the total fat, you need the total carbs, and you need the total protein per gram. So if you look at this, our amounts are 51 grams, and we have 3 grams of protein in there. So if you take 3 divided by 51, you'll get, 0.0588. So I'm going to go up to my protein. I'm going to go 0.05, and then I'm going to round it up to 9. So I'm going to give it three little digits there. So then let's do the same thing for our carbs. And that would be 9 divided by our serving size, 51. And that is 0.17 and then 6. And I'm going to round that one. Let's go to the fat. And so then fat is 7. So let's do 7 divided by the 51. That's 0.13, and then 7 would round it. And so then I'm going to save that right there. And so I'm going to add that to my meal log right now. And so you'll see right now to verify this, it's 1 gram. And right here on this, it'll show you, 0.1, 0.2, 0.1. Those numbers are not terribly important overall, but we're gonna multiply this by 51. 51 grams is what we have in this serving over here. And so we're gonna take that and we're gonna put that in there. And if you look at it, when I put it in there, it is right here. Look at this. This is my phone. It is 3 grams of protein, 9 carbs, 7 fat. This is now in here as a per gram measurement. And so now I can eat, if I want to eat, 75 grams of this because maybe it's some food that I really like and I want to maximize the most that I can get but not upset my macros completely, I'm going to get a very accurate amount and I'm going to put that on a scale. I'm going to get 75 grams for this thing, and then I'm going to eat it, and it has 4 grams of protein, 13 carbs, and 10 grams of fat. Now I can put whatever I want. Say that you're at the end of your day, you're planning it ahead of time because you're a professional, and you're like, man, I still have 5 grams of protein, 15 carbs, and 11 grams of fat left. I could maximize that. So let's see. Let's go up to 85, 5, 15, 11.6. That's close enough for me right there. That would end your day with being 0.6 over and everything else on fat, and everything else would be perfectly accurate. I would see that as a win, even though I said don't go over. We're going to make an exception here because that's incredibly close. And that's the benefit of tracking in grams. So I always do my diets in grams, and I always encourage everyone else to do their diets in grams. It's not as hard as it seems. I just did it for you real quick. It takes more work to put all of those things in there than it does to, actually use them. So once you set them up and it's super easy, then it's there forever, and you can always use them however you want to. So just make sure that you test it out. Just verify the labels by putting in the serving size into your little macro calculator, and you'll know exactly what to do. So here's another problem that a lot of people that track their macros don't quite grasp, and it's that everything gets tracked. And I mean everything. And so you have to be conscious of what you eat and drink throughout the day, because things that have calories in them have to be tracked. Everything. And so if you put it in your mouth and swallow it, it should be tracked. And so one mint, and I'm talking about those Lifesavers wintergreen mints that are delicious, and I can eat 15 of them before I finally say, stop it, Jared. One of them's not a big deal, right? But when you eat 10 of them, it adds up pretty quick, because a Lifesavers mint has 4 carbs per mint in it. And 4 carbs adds up very fast. So if you have 10 mints per day, you're adding 40 grams to your total carbohydrate intake. Now, if you're tracking macros like the macro calculator we had in the last video, it was like 90 carbs a day on that thing. You just took 40 grams of those carbs in mints from chewing one mint every 30 minutes. And for the 5-hour period of time that you were sitting at your desk at work, bored and needed something to stick in your mouth. That adds up very fast. People that fail at diets fail most of the time because they're eating things they don't recognize and don't track. So you have to make sure that everything that enters your mouth gets tracked. I had a client for a while that I helped, and we just couldn't figure out why the diet wasn't working. Finally, he switched over. He tried an intermittent fasting diet. He did it on his own, and he had some success with it. And so, I asked him, I said, hey, man, what is the reason for your success on this diet? We tried so many different things, and I know intermittent fasting is convenient, but it doesn't have any sort of superior, fat burning effects, comparatively to other diets that are calorically balanced. And he said, intermittent fasting and the fasting windows when I couldn't eat anything made me aware of how much food I was putting in my mouth throughout the day. Adding a mint here, adding a piece of candy there, adding a drink that had some calories. All that stuff that you can't have during your fasting window because it takes you out of fasting, he eliminated. So when he ate in his eating period of time, he was within his macros, and he actually started losing weight very quickly. If you're following a diet and you're not tracking every single thing that goes in your mouth, or at least knowing what you're eating and paying attention to that stuff, you're not going to get the results that you're looking for. And that's a hard truth. I'm sorry, a lot of people fail because they can't stop grabbing their kids' food and taking, a goldfish or a handful of goldfish that their kids are eating and little snacks here and there. And that's a huge problem. I do that right now, but I'm not trying to lose weight because I just like to eat. And so if you're not trying to lose weight, just be happy with yourself and accept I like to eat and I'm going to be fat, and that's okay. And I'm okay with being fat sometimes, because whenever I need to not be fat, I can. It's put your nose to the grindstone, work, get where you want to be. If you want to relax, if you want to go on vacation, if you want to do that stuff, that's fine if you know how to control your diet and you know how to get there. And if it's easy enough to get there for you. But otherwise, you need to know what you're doing all the time. So let's be real. You're going to screw up. You're reading these, right? You're going to forget to track something. You're going to say this sucks and fall off your diet. And you're not going to want to do it anymore. So it's normal. The answer is not to just say, screw it. I fell off my diet. I had this and this. Diet's ruined. I'm taking the entire day off. And then usually you take the next day off. And then finally you're like, I'll get back on it on Monday. I need to eat my food this weekend, and I'm just going to binge myself retarded, and then... Can I say retarded anymore? Sorry. I didn't mean it in a hateful or negative way. I'm going to binge myself out of my mind, and I'm going to get back on my diet on Monday. And so with that, you're going to fail, and you're going to repeatedly fail, and you're going to constantly fail, and you're going to spin your wheels trying to get on a diet and get off a diet, back and forth. So the answer is get back on your diet immediately. Get back on the macros immediately. You miss something, you can't account for it, you don't know what you ate, you binged on a box of Pop-Tarts, and you ate the full box of Pop-Tarts before you even realized it, and you're like, I don't even know if there was 5 packages in there, or if there was 2 packages in there. It doesn't matter. Don't do it on Monday. Don't do it tomorrow. If you want to be successful, get back on it immediately and just stick with the rest of your macros for the day. You don't have to be perfect. You just need consistency, and consistency is a habit. It's these things that you do every day, and that concludes the video for properly tracking your macros. And so since we've done that, I'm going to go through a little bit of these apps that I have with My Macros Plus, and I'm going to show you a little bit of the MyFitnessPal as well. So let's back up to a blank screen here, and let's get on my phone, and we're going to go to MyFitnessPal. So hopefully you can see this on your screen, because I've got this handy dandy gadget. Not going to worry about these goals here. I don't use this program, so bear with me. But from what, if you want to set your macros up, the easiest way on MyFitnessPal, if you go to the More section, you go to Nutrition, and then you go to, you go to Macros, and I believe you can edit your goals, right, like that. So then it gives you a default goal here of calories, carbohydrates, protein, and fats. So here's kind of the downside with the MyFitnessPal stuff. And so you can set a calorie goal, but you'll see when you want to set carbs, like if you were Nancy, 150, 150, and 50. So we'd want, and this is where it irks me a little bit. Carbohydrates are first on the left, protein in the middle, and fat on the right. Well, my life lives protein, fat, carbs. So from, you guys are probably seeing this the other way, but protein, fat, carbs, it goes left to right that way for me. And so when it does this, it drives me insane, because it's obviously not somebody that, the person that designs this, they never learned it the way that I learned it, which is not wrong. It's just different. So right now you'll see 20% of those, it says, it goes by these percentages. And that's the problem that I run into, is you can't type a goal in this. What you can do is change your percentages. And so you're, 151, whoops, you got to play with them until you get close. 151, 151, and 50 is a great percentage, but you have to add all of your stuff up to 100%, which means then you have to change your calories. So you have to know what your calories are going to be before you set this up. I think 1950 was where we're at. So now it's going to change the percentage amounts. There we go, 2020. Guys, do you see why I hate this app? I have no idea what I'm doing wrong here. So we're gonna start at the beginning here. Goals. Starting weight. See, 2013 was whenever I tracked this last on this app, because that was the last time I thought this app was any good. So you can customize on the goals. You can change your goals here. Like I said, 1950. There we go. Change that first. Then we're going to change our carbs down to the range. See, 146 and 171 are all I'm able to choose. And so protein will be the same thing. Fat will also be between 43 and 54. I'll err on that side. Still not 100%. So you're seeing my frustration with the app. I'm sure there's somebody else that's better at this than I am that's going to show you exactly how this works. But that's my number one problem that I have, because they lock all this stuff out behind this 1 month, $10 a month kind of thing. And if that's what you want, and you want to be able to do all the file exports and all this stuff, pay for it. Do it. I think it'd be a great app in that situation. There's other things that are in there that are good. I do like this app for a lot of different stuff. You can track, virtually everything that you have in here. It's a cool community. If that's your thing, get this app. If you're like me, you get My Macros Plus. And My Macros Plus is beautiful because I have different things set up on this program for the days. So, app settings up there at the top right, set nutritional goals, and let's add a new goal, and we'll call this Nancy's goal. And she needs 150, 150, and 50. And so then, and you can do it by ratio if you want, see over here, but we're not going to do that. We're going to go back, and since it deleted all my stuff, and we're going to do it right here, and then save. Saved, would you like to apply? Absolutely, I would. And so we're going to make sure that we have the Nancy goal, and you'll see right here versus all these other ones, you know, like whenever I used to eat 400 grams of protein, 400 carbs, and 150 grams of fat per day, that then you can really jump between different goals. You can keep all this stuff in there if you want to. You may be able to do that with, you know, the other sides of this as well. But that's, whoops, Nancy. Here you go. Save. Make sure we're on Nancy. And so then from there, it's just as simple on this one. You can scan a barcode over here. I don't have any barcodes to scan, I don't think. Whoops, that's really awkward. That's my label. Matching a barcode. See, you're not going to find some things, but nutrition label scanner, that's awesome. This is a new little tool that I've seen. Scan a label, line your camera close up, and tap to focus. We're gonna try this out right here. I've got this sweet Nutrithority old label right here. We're gonna tap to focus. Take it. Use that photo. Let's see what it gets. It's a new label. Double check all of this correct. Well, since it's a an amino acid product, it is correct. But it does have, if you look at scoops, 6.7 grams, and that's exactly what the scoop is here. So you'll see, you can do the recent foods that you use, things like that. So like if an apple, you can see that I use grams. If you want to use 150 grams of an apple for your first meal, you put that there. Hopefully, now that I've shown you all this stuff, there's nothing in here that's not in grams, because that would be embarrassing. But if you want Isotherity and you want to take, a scoop of Isotherity, 32 grams, put that in there. So now you have an apple, Isotherity, and I think Nancy probably wants some almonds. Oh, she wants some natural Jif, because natural Jif I know I have in there as grams. And let's do the approximate tablespoon dosage, which I would still measure. And so there you have it. So that's why I like this one. At the top, you're going to see protein, carbs, and fats, left to right, as it should be. It'll show you exactly how much you have left for the day. At the bottom of the screen, it's going to show you how much you've used already, and then you're going to see a total of protein, carbs, and fats and calories per meal. That's how you want to do it. This is why I like this program. There is, you can do a lot of different stuff with this one, tracking your weight. 2017, I was 231. You can see all these variations from different diets that I've done over the years, 216, all the way up to my highest on this thing, about 230, 235. So hopefully this little waste of your time wasn't a waste of time, and tracking this has been beneficial in showing you kind of the different limitations of the apps and things like that. If you love MyFitnessPal and you love how it works, use MyFitnessPal. It's not important how you do it, it's that you do it and it's accurate when you do it. And that's what I wanted to make sure that you understood, and some tips and tricks, like measuring per gram and things like that, that really do help out ultimately in the long run for making this an easier, more accurate kind of thing for you to do. So if you guys have any questions, I'm going to move on to video 3 here in a minute for you guys, because hopefully this was shorter than the last one. And, let me know if you have any questions on tracking your macros. Hit me up, shoot me a message on Instagram or something like that, and I'll be happy to get back to you guys. Thanks.